Good morning, everybody. It is me, TA Tim, here again. I usually am very excited to fill this role of hosting the show. Today, I'm not. And I'm going to get through this, and you guys are going to get through this. And we're still going to have a show because we got a lot to talk about. Jebb is not here. Sarah, 2 days ago, had a miscarriage. So it's really hard in our office right now. Of course, most of you guys know last week my wife miscarried. Now Jebb's wife miscarried. This is a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. It really feels attacked. I know, a lot of you guys do not like hearing things about spirituality. You guys do not like us when we talk about God. Guys, there's a lot of spiritual warfare going on here. And whether you believe it or not, if you believe in, not karma, if you believe in feelings or energy or whatever you believe in, there's just a lot of attacks going on right now. So I urge everyone, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in Buddha, whether you are an atheist, would you be praying for this company? Would you be praying for us? Because no matter who you are, like I said, this is just one of those rough things. Having gone through it last year, then again this year, I would not wish this pain on anybody. And of course, Jebb is having to deal with this today. Sarah's having to deal with this today. So they are home resting. They are recovering. Our thoughts, of course, are with them. And I know you guys are as well. But as heavy as that is, we will continue to talk about today because there's a lot to do. Today is the big day from the FOMC meeting, the announcement. What is going to happen? As the title talks about, we're going to be talking about what might happen next with Bitcoin. We're going to actually give our predictions on what we think the price action will look like. I'm joined today by two people here in office. The first one is Smay. How you doing this morning, Smay?
Yeah, guys, today, tough morning. Definitely tough morning. But I got, we still got to push through. We have a lot to talk about. So I want to start today off just because I love you guys. The support you guys provide to us is so amazing, and it keeps us going, and it keeps us wanting to do this. I want to read some green names. So we have Dennis Pizarka, Matt C, Crypto JMP, Tom Wilkes, Sultan of Salt. We got Matt C, Agent Gold, Adam Rourke, Crypto Alchemist, Cryptopher, Groovy, Philly Fan, 61. If you're talking about Philadelphia 76ers, I'm sorry for you, my friend. That must be tough. Grand Roofing Incorporated, Tristan Thompson, Win Peoples, all of you guys. I love all you guys. You guys are the best. Your support means the world to us.
Yeah, thank you, Smay. We're also joined this morning sitting in Jebb's seat by T-Shroom once again. You're getting a lot of airtime here as of late, T-Shroom. How you feeling this morning?
Better than I deserve.
Yeah, that's for those of you who don't know, we laughed at that yesterday. We didn't know what he's doing. Those of you who watch Dave Ramsey, I guess that's what Dave Ramsey says every single time callers call and ask him how he's doing. So that's gives it a little more context to that little intro right there.
That's right.
I would say your performance last time was a little bit stronger. I liked the pain that you almost looked like you were.
Well, I think what made it funny was we had no idea what it was referencing. But you just started.
I laughed because his eyes were almost watering because he was pushing it out.
It's because I was holding back laughter while I was saying it.
Gosh. Wow. Well, guys, we're going to go and jump on into it. We're going to cover. There's one other story outside of Bitcoin we're going to talk about today, very, very briefly, just as we go through our market pulse. We're about to go through there here in a second, but a little bit different of a show today. And when I'm hosting it, it seems like the show flows. It's just a little different, but for the good things. We're actually in the first little segment here for about 15 minutes after our kind of our market pulse. We're going to be looking at the bullish reasons that Bitcoin might actually be rallying. It might not be why you suspect. It might be exactly what you suspect. But we're going to talk about the bullish reasons and things that you should be looking out for in the future. Then after we do some chat there in the middle, we're going to be talking about the bearish things to keep your eye on, at least short term for Bitcoin. Because as you guys know, it's a very volatile market, which means a lot of down, a lot of up. But we're going to talk about what our prediction for Bitcoin price is based off of these interest rates. And maybe, just maybe, despite interest rates spiking, it might not be a bad thing overall. But let's go ahead and jump onto CoinMarketCap. Let's take a look at what is happening today in crypto. Now, Bitcoin up almost 2%. I guess 1.5 rounds up to 2%. The biggest one, though, in the top 10 is Cardano. Now, for those who don't know, I made a video about this yesterday. It went out last night, where I talked about actually the technicals on Cardano are sitting phenomenally. I can jump over there really quickly and show you guys what we're talking about. In case you didn't watch the video, you can go watch that. But if we're out here on the 3 daily chart, we've actually been in a falling wedge on Cardano now for a while. And I know some of you don't like that. You're like, oh, you can just put a line anywhere. These are significant lines that we've used many, many times. Again, setting it right here back in April of 21. We then used several wicks there. We bounced off of it here in July of 21. We came down here more recently. Of course, what we did talk about in the videos recently on Cardano, we hit a new low for this year. However, I said that there's a good chance Cardano's sitting in a very bullish state. Whales are buying. We could see a bounce. And sure enough, we're seeing one right now. It's not over yet. It hasn't broke through resistance yet. There's still a lot of stuff that comes out with the Fed. Will Cardano follow Bitcoin? But as of right now, it is actually leading the way. And that coin market cap, I'll bounce over to it really quickly. It tells us in the last 24 hours, it's up 4%. That might not tell you the whole story. So for example, if I go to the chart and I'm looking at my 4-hourly chart, let me zoom in just a little bit. Since we kind of had this little bottom that we talked about a little over 24 hours ago, Cardano actually, if you would enter a trade right there, you would be up roughly about 7%, but it got as high as 9%. Versus if you go over to Bitcoin and look at the same time frame since its bounce, Bitcoin has only rallied about 4%. Now it's back down to around 3%, but at its peak, about 4%. So at the moment, Cardano is outpacing. It's actually kind of leading the market. Could this be the start of something? Again, the haters are going to say no. The 88 gang is going to say yes. We got to sit and watch to determine what's happening. But right now, as far as technicals are concerned, Cardano's sitting in a great spot. Looking at some of the other ones, though, the only thing that look down right now in the top 10 are these stable coins. So that's always a good sight. Let's look at the biggest movers in the last 24 hours. Let's see here. Waves. Waves is one that has been in all of 2022 been very volatile. Some days Waves is the biggest gainer. Some day Waves is the biggest loser. So for those traders out there, I'm sure if you have been trading Waves, there's a lot of very happy traders with that volatility. 14% in 24 hours is great. The biggest losers of the day, though, would be Kyber Network Crystal V2. I don't know really anything about that, but they're down 8%. Is there anything big or anything that we know? Cosmos down 1.84%. That one is in the top 30. Also in the top 30, what is this? Eunice said Leo down 1.77. Not that big of a deal. But that is where we're at. As I talked about Cardano, it's actually really interesting. I guess I don't really need to read this article anymore. I kind of summed it up for you. But here's an article talking about the technicals that the eye that a lot of traders are looking at, the price point that people are looking at is 90 cents. Currently, Cardano sitting at, I wanted to make sure I got it right, about 81, just hovering right under 82 cents. A lot of traders are looking at 90 cents for Cardano. So if you are a trader, potentially there is still some room to make some money. But again, we urge everyone, do not just listen to us and then make a trade based off of what we say. Make sure you do your own research. What we want to aim to do for you guys is bring you guys all the information you can use to make your decisions for yourself. But again, we are not financial advisors. I want to throw a real quick to T-shirt before we jump in and we talk about the Fed news. Is there anything else that you're seeing right now in crypto that has you really excited, really concerned? What is your view overall about what's happening in the crypto market?
Well, I mean, we're waiting, right? It's a big day. This Fed decision is going to have sweeping implications across all the different cryptos as it follows Bitcoin, and maybe even there's an argument to be made as they follow the price movement of Cardano. So it's very exciting. I'm also seeing a ton of eminent MACD crosses on the daily for almost all cryptos. So that's exciting too.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to jump in and do a little bit of TA before we jump in there. But today, just so you guys know, we are actually going to have something special. Instead of having a video output tonight, the three of us, and we're going to do our best to get Kelly here too, but I think Smay is telling me it's really hard to both live stream that event and get a Zoom call in here. So Kelly, we figured it out. We'll try our best, but we don't know yet. But the three of us at least will be here. We're going to be watching that Fed announcement from Jerome Powell live. We'd love for you to come join us. That should be, what time are we going live for that T-Stream? Is it 2 or 2:30 Eastern?
1:50 is when we'll go live.
Okay.
And then the announcement will be at 2, and we'll probably not
stay
on.
Oh, the announcement's at 2? I thought it was at 2:30.
2.
2.
So
you learn new things every day. Good. Well, yeah. So we will go live at 1:50 and come watch it with us. We're going to then, after it's over, give a brief discussion on what our thoughts are. But of course, what we're going to do right before that happens, though, is make our predictions on, based off of what the outcome could be, what Bitcoin might be doing next. But let's go ahead and jump over to the Bitcoin chart. Now, I want to start on the 4-hourly chart. A lot of times when I do TA, I start on bigger time frames and move myself in. I actually, for the sake of this, I want to start short term and then kind of make our way out as we go through these discussions. So the first thing that I noticed right here, you guys, we drew this line the other day. I showed this the other day, this yellow line. Kelly's actually the one that pointed out to me, so I want to give credit to where credit is due. Kelly Kellum is phenomenal technical analyst. So what he's measuring right here are the wicks. If I'm going out to the daily chart, just so this makes sense to you guys, a lot of times what you guys have seen us draw is this channel or this bear flag, depending on what you call it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's clearly a line of, just moved it. There's clearly a line of resistance. We were using candle body closes over here to mark our support. But if I use these wicks right here, I actually get another line that we're finding a lot of support on right now. So going back down to the 4-hourly chart, we not only bounced off that line perfectly using it as support, but if I pull up my RSI, we did have some bullish RSI divergence. Again, was it crazy strong? Not necessarily. But if you're looking at this, this is a flat bottom. This is a double bottom. You guys are going to see on the chart, it's a W pattern, but it's also divergence because our RSI went up. Drawing that for you real quick, just in case you're confused. RSI went up. Prices bounced at the same levels. This is a sign of bullish divergence. One of the reasons why we did have a rally. Even on the 4-hourly, we have a MACD that is going to give us some green signals. And we'll talk about bearish things later. There is one thing, though, to be concerned about, because while we're really happy about this 4% boost we've had over the last 24 hours, or sorry, the last 30 hours, I guess would be more realistic. This is more of like a price extension of the bears were in control, driving us down. Now the bulls have taken a little control just in anticipation. We don't know yet what's going to come out of Jerome Powell's mouth, what's going to come from that announcement. So don't read into this little short rally over the last 5 or 6 4-hourly candles and say, oh, Bitcoin's ready to rally. If you pull up our Bollinger Bands, we're actually now on the 4-hourly chart. It looks like we bounced off of the resistance level and we're headed back down. But ultimately, this is a day where the news will trump all on-chain metrics. It'll trump all technical analysis. We just use technical analysis today to analyze where the price has been and what potentially could happen based off of that news. So that's what I have on the 4-hourly chart. Let me go ahead and pull my Bollinger Bands down. Let's go ahead and move out to the daily and weekly and also start to flow our conversation as a whole over why potentially you should be bullish long-term on Bitcoin. Now, as we discussed yesterday, and T-Shroom did this beautifully, he talked about if we actually get a 50 basis points announcement or even lower, like 25 or 0, not likely whatsoever. I think the biggest and most probable announcement is 50 basis points. Second most realistic is 75. Then after that, I think you discussed the 25, and then I guess there's never a 0% chance of it, but yes. I would put it pretty darn close for a 0%.
I still got that if you want to look at it on my...
You want to switch over to your chart and show that real quick? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
And you want to talk through it all? Did I do it beautifully, or do you want to analyze anything I said?
I got it. So I'm seeing a lot in the comments that the Fed decision is baked in. That's kind of what the story is today, is that it's not. In the last couple of days, we've seen what we went over yesterday was the CME futures are predicting that actually it could be 75, a triple stack, so rate hike, so 75 basis point movement from where we are currently, and that would bring us lower than where we are now.
I do think, and when people are commenting and they're saying that the price was already baked in, I do think 50 basis points was baked in. I do think that this price dropped in anticipation. Because again, we talked about this on the show yesterday, the shifting of opinions and the shifting of our mood and what we thought. Because back in January, there was still a belief that the Fed might just keep it at 0 and not raise it whatsoever and hope that everything smoothed out. Then as the months went on, 25 became realistic. And then we became, okay, well, 50 is coming at some point, but hopefully down the road. And then it became like, oh no, we need 50 now. And then 75 came into the picture here last week. So at this point, it's funny, a month ago, if you had said 50 basis points in May, people would be afraid. Now we're rooting for it. And again, I do agree with anyone who says the price is baked in. If we see 50 basis points, I absolutely agree with you. I do think we could find this support and begin to rally back up. Are you back on my screen, Smay? Are you back on? Okay, yeah, I'm back on my screen. I'm sorry, man. Should have commented on that. If we have 50 basis points, I do think this is baked in. I do think then at that point, we could potentially see a rally come up here. Maybe not rally back up into the channel just yet. Maybe even find our resistance level right here. It is the 75 basis points that I think that we're looking at for potential downside. But again, we're going to talk about bearish outlook here in just a little bit. But let's, even for sake of argument, we'll talk about this more. Let's even talk about, let's say that happens. Let's say that we get 75 basis points and we end up bouncing down even as low as 32,000 and then rally up. This is why long-term, this should be bullish. Again, short-term bullish, 50 basis points or lower, the price already been baked in. It's time to go back to the upside. 75 basis points, though, sends us down, and this could be long-term bullish. And the reason for this, I actually want to show a tweet given by Gert von Lagen, I think is how you pronounce the name. Maybe if you guys know the correct pronunciation, correct me. But I'm going to pull this up so you guys can see it. He analyzed right here, the last time we saw an increase to interest rates was back here in 2015, right before 2016. No, I guess that is 2016. In 2016, in July. Yeah, so make sure I'm reading this chart correctly. Just want to make sure I'm accurate with you guys. Notice as the interest rate started to go up, so did the price of Bitcoin, of course, leading to that 2017, 2018 peak. And of course, while most people consider this a bear market, you're going to notice the levels stayed above that current level. So the prediction he's making here, and I don't think he's making this firm, he's just showing evidence, I'll talk about it in a second, is that right now, as we start to see the interest rates hike again, could this potentially be what raises the price? Now, pause. This is not a guarantee. And I don't believe, and I want to make sure, I would love to talk to Gert Van Lagen, however I say his name. I don't believe he's trying to make a guarantee here. The purpose of this is so that people understand that historically, I think there is this thought that if we see 75 basis points come out, and as we see the interest rate start to hike, and as we see power come back to the dollar, I think the thought is that automatically that is a sure deal that Bitcoin and other risky assets will go down. What he is pointing out in this post is that historically, and we only have one mark of Bitcoin, we're going to talk about gold here in just a second, but we only have one mark where Bitcoin was alive, where we saw an interest rate hike, and in that time frame, we actually saw a rise in price. So, again, are we promising you we get to 75 basis points, interest rates go up, Bitcoin's going to skyrocket, hit new all-time highs? That is not a promise. What we're saying here is just because we get a high interest rate does not mean that Bitcoin and cryptos will crash and go to the downside. But as I said before, just saying ago, I want to kind of move and maybe even look at a more historical, a bigger historical picture, and I'm going to have to, for the sake of argument, it's not perfect, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to compare Bitcoin to gold. I'm going to look at what's happening with gold and interest rate hikes in the last 50, 60 years or so. So you guys are going to see right here, this is a weird chart, and I'm going to do my best to kind of guesstimate what it's looking at dates. You're going to see interest rates. We hit an all-time high on interest rate hike, hitting 20% back in 1980, okay? That climb started roughly, I'm going to call this about 76, so probably 76, 77. If we go and we look at our gold prices in that same timeline, let's look over here at 76, 77. Notice right here, as that interest rate hiked, look at when gold starts to hike. Right here, 76, 77. And of course, almost the exact same time that the interest rates hit all-time high is when gold hit an all-time high. So that's a really interesting correlation. If you go through, I'm not going to spend the time doing it, but you're going to notice there's actually a correlation. As the interest rates went up, so did gold. When the interest rates came down, so did gold. I'll quickly show this. This is a chart you guys can find. Trading Economics is where I found this one. And let's see, what's the website for this? I didn't even look at it. Macro trends. Go and do this research yourself. Don't just trust my word for it. But in our research this morning, we actually found a correlation between interest rates and gold, and it was positive. So again, is this a perfect situation? Go off my screen now, Smay. Is this a perfect correlation? No, because gold and Bitcoin are not the same. Of course, Bitcoin is seen by more than probably half of the people who are invested, not knowing the research of it, is seen as a risky asset. Like, there's a lot of people who are invested in Bitcoin and they see it as a risky asset. Gold is not considered a risky asset. But there are a large amount of people that consider Bitcoin and gold close to the same, and I think that number is growing. Now, we don't have anything else to correlate. Of course, back in the 80s, tech was not a big deal. There weren't a lot of stocks. The other thing that Bitcoin's compared to is the tech world. We don't have as much comparison there either, and we only have one situation where we can compare Bitcoin itself to the raise in interest rates. But historically, the point of this, again, is not to give you guys a guarantee, but to let you know just because interest rates go up does not mean it's the end of assets price action. It actually shows historically it could be a birth of hope for the future. And I have a little more thoughts that I want to give on that, but I want to throw it to T-Shroom for just a second and give your take, because I just gave a long-winded answer to that. What are your thoughts about everything I just said, and what are your thoughts about interest rate to Bitcoin correlation?
Yeah, I always hesitate to, just because something happened in the past doesn't mean it will happen again.
Yeah.
Gold is definitely a different asset than Bitcoin, especially now. And we want it to continue in that way. But I think that the overall kind of observation that you're making, Tim, is one that you can extrapolate some actionable data on, some actionable insights on, which is essentially is when interest rates go up, folks tend to get into what are perceived as safer instruments, havens, if you will. And, whether or not Bitcoin is seen as a haven is kind of the theme of what we're going to be talking about today. Has the sentiment shifted And so that's kind of what I'm seeing with your analysis.
Yeah, and I think as we look at the chart one more time, I want to make sure I get the right chart up here. I actually went ahead and I made on the weekly chart, I'm going to go and pull that up. I made a projection of, again, because I think short term, as I said before, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the bearish section, I still think there's a strong argument that potentially we could go as low as 32. I also have these two other marks. We'll talk bearishly that 20,000 and 18,000 are in the cards as well. Not that I think that's going to happen, but I do want to prepare everybody. That is a potential. But 32,000, I think, is still in the cards. But when I'm looking at it like this, it's really scary when people say 32,000 or 30,000. To look at the angle, come on now, zoom for me here, TradingView. To look at it from this perspective, where all I'm looking at is the last couple of months, and I'm looking at that and I'm saying, oh my gosh, we potentially could see a massive drop here of another 17, 18% on Bitcoin. That looks scary. This is a scary looking chart. The reason I have this chart up here is because, let's see, I drew it hypothetically. Let's say on the weekly chart we do end up dropping there, and I gave us a 2-week window, could be a 3-week window, could happen in one, could never happen. I just want to give you guys a good look. If this happens, and I'm looking from a long time out, because we say this all the time. I just went away from my mic. Sorry, guys. When in doubt, zoom out. When you're in fear, zoom out. When you're afraid, zoom out. If we drop to 32, and I'm looking at it like that, that looks like a drop in the bucket. That does not look significant at all. If I'm thinking about DCA and I'm thinking about investing for my future, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm looking at this chart, that's not scary at all. Yes, when I zoom in and I get really, really close and I look at it really, really I'm only looking at the last couple of months, last couple of weeks, now that drop looks scary. But if you're thinking long term, this is not even that big of a deal. And again, what we also see happen, I'll go back down to the daily chart to show this one, is when we have situations like this happen, we have these dips, there's a lot of FUD that enters the space, but this might actually be one of the most bullish things we could see happen. What am I talking about? Well, last summer, right here, we were really, really fearful throughout this entire summer. There were a lot of people saying this was just a pause before a continued crash. People were calling for 20,000, 18,000, 13,000 back last summer of 2021, especially when we got around this region here in July and we started to dip lower than we had even been before. Here's the issue, though. What did this set up that is majorly bullish? And this is something I've been talking about here for a long time. If I pull up my RSI, this set up bullish divergence. Price action was going down, but the RSI kept going up, right? This last call dip, or what we like to call a spring, catapulted all of Bitcoin to hit a brand new all-time high just a couple of months later. Same thing. Here's what I've been saying for a while. Those of you who've been watching know this. What I called for back here after this dip was I said we need to see another dip below 35, maybe get around 34, 33, maybe even 32. We need to see it happen again to set up that daily bullish divergence, because every single time in the history of Bitcoin that we've either topped out or bottomed out and started new trends, except for one, there has been divergence, and we have not had it yet. But guess what would happen? Looking at the RSI levels, it would be very hard for it to come down and match this 18 on the RSI, but the price could come down here easily, setting up, again, a downtrend in price action from candle body closes, but an uptick in RSI. That would be the daily bullish RSI divergence, the spring that would actually catapult Bitcoin historically back towards all-time highs. But that is what we're seeing. There's a couple other things that could happen. Smay, do you have a take real quick?
So I think to kind of sum up what we're kind of saying here at this bullish scenario, one of the things that I think is really fascinating, and something that I think especially today, later on, we're going to be live streaming the event, to keep an eye on, is that there's an opportunity here for Bitcoin to kind of prove its worth in a way, right? This is Bitcoin's opportunity to prove itself as, or at least to prove that people do view it as a safe haven or a hedge against inflation, a place to put your money when things aren't looking good, right? So at the end of the day, what I'm looking at here with this bullish scenario is, will Bitcoin rally despite whatever say the Fed comes out very hawkish, right? Yeah. Will Bitcoin rally despite that? And I think that has a huge implication on the future of Bitcoin this year. That could, in my opinion, be a catalyst that brings in a lot of excitement and attention back, giving it some air under its wings, right? Yeah. I personally, that's not the scenario I think is the most likely, but the point is to say that this opens a very big opportunity. So that's what I'm watching right now, especially is Bitcoin going to now decouple itself from the mid-cap tech stocks, from the NASDAQ, and those kind of the things that it has been kind of attached to the hip, and is it going to take more of a gold-type scenario of the way people view it? that's going to prove a huge thing for Bitcoin, and that's what I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, the last two things, and we're going to wrap this up quickly and get to some super chats here in a second. But the last two things also, and this doesn't have to do with the chart necessarily, would be, will Bitcoin finally hedge against inflation? And what we mean by that is actually, when you look at the charts, every time we see inflation go up, Bitcoin actually does rally a little bit. When we see inflation go down a little bit, Bitcoin drops a little bit. So I actually think it's already doing this, but will it even potentially be a future fight against inflation? And what I mean by that is, as the Fed starts to combat and try to limit inflation, rather than people saying, okay, the dollar's getting more power, it's actually going to grow in value, let me go invest in the dollar, is the writing going to be on the wall, as we talked about before, that the dollar is just broken and you can temporarily fix it, but as long as you have a soft currency where the power and value is decided from the inside and then is distributed out, you will always have a problem of control, of centralization, of the wrong power being in the wrong hands versus the economics of just how currency works. You will always flow to hard money like Bitcoin, where the value comes from the outside and comes the inside. Will we potentially see people start to be educated, start to realize, despite the fact that inflation is being temporarily fixed, this is not a full lifetime fix of the US dollar. It's a matter of years before the inflation starts to climb again. It's time to go in and start hedging against that future inflation and invest in Bitcoin. The other thing would be, are we finally going to see a split from the NASDAQ? Because most of you know, we see an inverse correlation, an inverse price action more often than not between the I'm talking about DXY, not NASDAQ, but I think my point here, I'm going to shift here, a split from the DXY. Are we going to see Bitcoin finally stop just doing the inverse of the DXY? There's actually a couple things here, and historically, I don't have time to go through the details of it. Maybe we'll do it in a different video. But historically, I actually looked it up this morning because I was curious. I was like, well, historically, when we have interest rate hikes, wouldn't it make sense that as power and value comes back to the US dollar, that the DXY would go up, right? Historically, that's not the case. In all actuality, there's a lot of times, sometimes it was correlated, sometimes as interest rates went up, the value of the DXY went up, but there's actually numerous times in history that the price goes down. Again, if you don't believe me, go do your own research on it. It's actually really interesting detail. So either the DXY keeps going down and Bitcoin stays in correlation, meaning inversely with it, and it goes up. Or the other thing is it's about time that people just start forgetting about the value of the dollar. They start thinking, how can I start having as much Bitcoin as possible? I know that's the way a lot of your brains out there think, but we're going to get to a point where we're going to start to see the mass majority of people come to that mindset as well. The question is when, not if. And I know there's so much more. We might talk a little bit more bullish stuff because I do think there's a lot more actual reasons to be bullish about the future of Bitcoin long-term than bearish. But I want to move on, read some super chats, have a word from our sponsor real quick, and then we'll jump into the bearish, at least short-term, reasons why Bitcoin could potentially go down. But the first thing I want to say is, I guess we're technically not sponsored. I said we're sponsored, but we have an affiliate with Ledger, and this is
brought to you by.
Yeah, this is something that if you guys purchase, of course it helps our channel. But Ledger is something that is, I think, actually fundamental to your success in crypto and your security and protection. This is something my wife invested in. This is something I suggest every single person do. And I'm not necessarily saying put 100% of your money into it, but we just watched what happened in Russia, what happened in Canada, where centralized powers moved to block and to cancel out people's ability to invest in crypto so that they don't skirt sanctions, so they don't skirt that centralized power's desire. And there was actual accounts on exchanges and even hot wallets that can be shut down. A cold wallet like Ledger, though, is where you hold the keys, you hold the power. No one can take that away from you. They cannot steal your money. So to fully secure and to make sure that you own your Bitcoin, you own your Cardano, you own your Ethereum, you own your Doge, whatever it might be, you want to invest in a cold wallet so you protect yourself against centralized powers. Ledger is what we use. We heavily recommend you do. There's a link down in the description below. But that's just my 2 cents. But let's read some super chats. I know I saw a couple come in, and we'll move on to some bearish stuff. So let's see. Slow LS, smooth is fast. Slow, smooth is fast. I don't know. I'm just not reading that right. Have you guys looked into Pacer yet?
It's an Army thing.
It's an Army thing?
Okay. Smooth, yeah. I can't remember it now.
Well, really killed the thunder. All right, there we go. Have you guys looked into Pacer yet? They just got their spot in Blocktopia. No, I have not looked in. T-Shim, do you know anything about
No, but I do remember. Okay,
Pacer.
so slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Oh, you had to revisit it.
Oh, that's an I. Okay, it's so small my screen looked like an L. So that was my bad.
No worries.
Reading's not my strong suit, I guess. No
yeah,
news there.
But I haven't heard of that coin.
I've never heard of Blocktopia either. What's that?
I've heard of Blocktopia.
You've heard of Blocktopia?
But I've never heard of
Is that one of the
Chase.
metaverse projects?
Decentraland type of deal.
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Interesting.
Tom Wilkes said, thoughts and prayers to my CNC family. Crypto is very unimportant today in the grand scheme of things. You are loved in the thoughts of many, many good people. Absolutely. Here's the thing, and we've said this on this channel a lot. We absolutely want to see not only our own pockets grow with crypto, we believe it is the future. It is the future of people actually being sovereign over their own money. Hashtag FinSov, financial sovereignty. But he's absolutely right. If your end goal is stacking your crypto or your money, and there's no tool, like money is a tool. Money is a tool to do the things that, if you're a Christian, the things that God made you do. If you're an atheist, the things that you feel like nature made you to do. We believe that no matter what your faith might look like, fundamentally humans were made or created or done for a purpose, and you have an individual purpose. And so when you start seeing things happen to your family, when you see things like what's happening to, my family, to Jebb's family, everything else pales in comparison. I would much rather be broke, have $0 in my bank account, but not have to go through that ever again. So yeah, our prayers are with Jebb. And I just want to encourage all of you, please, 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 if your brain still fixes that money is the end all be all, you're more than welcome to keep watching this channel and learn and make money, but that's not the purpose of this channel. This channel is to see you thrive and prosper and do everything you were made to do. So Terran Crypto said, Bitcoin Daily YTD forming a rising wedge set to break at Christmas. Does this line up with your TA and macros? So year to date, forming a rising wedge set. So what they're talking about here, I actually saw this talked about the other day. I'll pull up my Bitcoin chart real quick. Let me pull up a blank one. Where do I have? Ooh, there's some notes right there that you guys aren't supposed to see because that's an upcoming video that might happen here soon. What he's talking about right here is it depends on how you draw this, but he's going to go ahead and say that what we're looking at right now, instead of looking at it as a channel, because TA is an art form, there isn't a great way to put this, but he's going to put this probably more severely like this, whereas our line down here is more uptick. So he's looking right here. And of course, again, depending on what he's looking at, I don't have it breaking in December. I guess if he has something else there, I'd love to see that one. Is he... You know what? I'm going to explore this one. Maybe he's only talking about this small trading channel down here because that would be more relevant, but I don't think that that's going to be a wedge necessarily. I haven't drawn this out. Yeah, see, like that's going to be a just continued channel, in which case channels can go on for a long time. I'm going to have to look more into that one, Terran Crypto. But if you tell me what you're looking at necessarily in the comments, I'll try my best to paint that out. Elliot Locke said, prayers for my family to everyone at CNC. This year sucks, but all we can do is power through, keep our eyes on the ball and nose to the grindstone. Just know we love you all and we have your backs. Thank you so much, Elliot. Again, it's a hard time. Tony420 Tokyo Bowl said, what does Smay think about the Ape Society?
I think you're talking about Bored Ape, right?
Nope.
Well,
No.
No. Ape Society is one the
Is that different?
CNFT.
Oh, yes. Okay, I
Okay.
do know what that you're talking about.
okay.
I think it's neat. I don't have a lot of opinions about it. I think it's cool looking, though. That's all I have to say.
Short and sweet. I mean, real quick, I think that it potentially could be really cool. You guys, I've been on the show before saying I don't know if I'm going to invest in NFTs. It's not my ballpark. I do think people can make money there. What I do think is cool, though, is the demand going on. Like even the other day, Ape Coin, because there's now this whole thing. There's Bored Ape Yacht Club. There's the Ape Society. There's the Ape Coin itself. The demand is outrageous. There's a lot of fundamentals there that I'm not guaranteed 5 years from now it'll still be a big thing, but it is looking like the next couple of months, if not year and some change, could be extremely bullish on ApeCoin. Again, that's not financial advice. That's more my speculation of looking at what creates a good and prosperous and bullish coin. They have all the things lining up, but I just need to see a coin be older than 2-3 months old before 2 months old? Before I say I'm really bullish on it. Yeah, I think it was created about 2 months ago.
Yeah, I'm actually, so I'm starting to get really into into is not the right word. I'm getting a little bit more interested in NFTs. And like I said a while ago, and I got made fun of for this, I'm not trying to invest in NFTs as much as I think they're cool. I want to try to collect them a little bit. So that's it.
Yeah, I saw in chat, we're not going to talk about this, but I just wanted to be aware because it was something we discussed talking about today. Someone said, had anyone noticed Elon Musk's new picture on Twitter? That's a whole discussion itself. We decided to stick today's show to the Fed announcement because that is what is most important. Elon's information is just more fun. If we have time at the end of the show, maybe we'll discuss it briefly because we have some thoughts here. But we want to transition back over to Bitcoin. We want to transition back to speculation of what could be happening with the Fed announcement. But instead of looking at the bullish side, and we might wrap up and talk more bullish, let's look at what potentially the bearish scenario is. So the first one and the most obvious one is when we start to come in closer, and we're on the daily chart, we're on the 4-hourly chart. I'm going to start on the daily. The first one is, of course, could we be losing retail investment? Could we be losing retail attention? And here's the reason why. Again, even though we had interest rate hike back in, I guess you can go off my screen just while I'm talking about this. Even though we had interest rate hike back in 2016 that carried through, and we saw 2018 rally, the problem is that was nowhere near as aggressive as what we were about to see. And as we see the value start to go back towards the dollar, as we see the inflation be fought, it's going to cause economic problems where people are going to be very concerned about feeding their families, about keeping a roof over their head and paying their bills. It's going to get very stressful. And as much as someone might want to invest in Bitcoin, the question is going to be, is there dollars left on the table for them to do so? This is a concern. It's not a guarantee. Again, even historically, we've seen before when interest rates were hiked, people actually did go and invest in assets. The problem, though, were those investments, and we weren't able to see this data clearly, was that investment heavily retail investment, or was that data heavily whale investment? Or institutional investment. Retail investment, when people are worried, when people are scared, they tend to a little bit kind of come out. And here's the problem. Again, this would lead bullish, but when retail is not interested is a lot of times when the whales and the institutions end up pouncing. The problem is they keep that price down for a little while so they can get as much as possible. Is that going to happen? Are we potentially, you can go back to my screen now, are we potentially, I'm going to draw this out, going to see this crash come down? We had a 75% increase, or a 75 basis point increase, crash, slowly come down here to 32, and then start to bounce sideways and just move sideways, and whales pick up and traders pick up more supply. The other thing is, and this is where we're going to definitely look at the charts, and we said this before, I want to apologize to you guys, and I want to be very open. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't know why, and I don't know how I got that $24,000 prediction from the bear flag the other day. I don't know why, because when I was redoing it this morning, maybe my computer is glitching, maybe it's glitching today. What I'm actually seeing, this is the technical analysis here, and this is where some traders are looking at. If I'm looking at what we see happen right now, and I have two different support lines, so bear with me, that's why I have two different levels right here. There's two different levels down below 30,000, down to 20, even below there, that could play out. What do I get those price predictions from a technical analysis standpoint? If I draw my flag, again, who are taking all-time highs down to, let's start with this red level of support, where we have a candle body close on the daily chart. I put this right here. I project this out. This is where we broke it right here. This is where I'm getting this level of 20,000. So again, forgive me, those of you who heard me say 24. I'm not 100% certain why this is different. Was I looking at auto? I don't know. Either way, this is a $20,000 prediction. If this plays out as a bear flag using this red line of support, 20,000 is where the technical analysis says it should play out. Now, that's just 20,000. If I were to use the bottom of these wicks, and again, until we saw this dip right here and we saw a nice bounce, I wasn't looking at this too significantly, but let's just say this now has entered the cards. Now I take my all-time high down to the bottom of this wicks, and that changes everything, because not only do I have a longer flagpole, I also have a lower breaking point. Let's say if we broke somewhere around here, now we have a prediction of potentially 18,000. So these are two very bearish scenarios from a technical analysis standpoint that absolutely have the potential to play out. I want to caveat that right there. Again, that's not me saying it's guaranteed going to do it. I've talked about, I think the fundamentals, I think there's a lot of things happening both on-chain fundamentally and attention from whales and institutions, as well as the future coming with regulatory clarity, that I think that the floor for Bitcoin is a lot higher. But if people are tempted to start taking profits because of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, just because money has come off the exchanges does not mean money can't go back on the exchange and people sell out and wait for a lower price to buy back in. So we have to keep this as a very real possibility. And I guarantee there's a lot of people in this video right now who are saying, absolutely, Tim, that is what I'm preparing for. I'm waiting for that 20,000. I'm waiting for the 18,000. I have a buy order in. And you know what? To be honest, it's not even a bad idea to go ahead and put in, what do we call it, an angel order, an angel buy order or something. This has happened before, not on this exchange. And I don't know which exchange it happened on, so I wish I could show you. But there was, some of you guys remember, there was a wick on a Bitcoin chart that the price dropped all the way to 13,000. It was weird. It was a day the price dropped all the way to 13,000 and then immediately shot back up. It was a glitch. It was something crazy happened on that exchange alone. But guess what? There were people who just said, you know what, I think the price is dropping. Let me put a buy order in at these lower levels, and it paid off for them. This wouldn't be a freak out. This actually would have a lot of reason, a lot of rationale. It would have an explanation. I'm not going to predict 20,000, 18,000, but I also can't deny that there is a case for it. The other thing, of course, and we talked about this, would just be if 75 basis points comes out. We talked about this before. I don't think 75 basis points has been worked into the price. I do believe we came down here to 37, 37.6, 37.7 in anticipation of 50 basis points. And so there again, bullish. If we only get 50, it probably is bottomed out. But if we get 75, I don't think that's worked in yet. And I don't think we shoot all the way down to 32 right off the bat. But I do think that the price comes down, breaks this low yellow line, comes down maybe to 35, 36, and then because of the FUD, because of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because of the momentum we've given bears, because of people who have been shorting Bitcoin and they're getting some power, they potentially could have some control and power to continue to decline the price. Flipping into the bull side, though, that would give us that spring we talked about in the bullish section that actually might be the catalyst, the spring, the explosion that Bitcoin needs to go ahead and rally. That is what I have from a bearish standpoint. The outlook, again, that's more short-term bearish, but a lot of people are worried about short-term. Long-term, it doesn't look like there's that much I would be afraid of long-term unless Bitcoin officially gets below that 30, starts entering into a bear market. What are your thoughts about that, T. Shroom? Again, I don't see that likely happening, but maybe you know something I don't know.
Well, it depends on how Bitcoin can decouple from the NASDAQ. That's where I see kind of the beginning of the analysis when it comes to this Fed decision. If the Bitcoin can start to decouple from, and if you go to my screen, for those of you who don't know, so this is Bitcoin over till 2022 is the time frame here. So you have multiple months. You can see the this is the NASDAQ below. This is Bitcoin above. You can see the correlation for any of you who haven't confirmed this for yourself. That's right. So this is the correlation we're talking about. It's not one-to-one, obviously, but they move in a pretty close tandem. So you can come off that now. So if Bitcoin cannot decouple itself, and the stock market has a very strong reaction to a series of Fed rate hikes over the rest of this year and into 2023, then it's just going to go down with the ship. It's going to go down with the stock market, and it'll just be a long-term play. But that honestly doesn't bode very well for Bitcoin, because then the question becomes, will Bitcoin ever decouple from the stock market? Will it ever stop being just the plaything of large hedge funds and other money funds? Will it be able to decouple and become the cryptocurrency that it was created to be, and also and have like a close to $10 trillion market cap, so that it can be a exchange currency, not just a store of value. So that's where you start. Can it decouple? So I'm going to be paying attention to that. I think the early indicators also of that will be how the Fed is able to control inflation as it increases these rates. So if we get a triple stack today, 75 basis point increase, then and inflation continues to increase, that's a really bad sign, right? We were talking about this before the show. What does that mean? That essentially means that the levers that the Federal Reserve use to control the economy and in their own theory keep us safe, keep currencies stable, and keep economies going forward and growing, that means that those levers no longer work. Those tools no longer work, at least for the short term. So if that happens, I think that's where you start to see folks rushing into commodities, precious metals, and crypto and Bitcoin, right? Because that's kind of showing that the government really doesn't know what they're doing at this point, and things are not working like they used to work. So so first it's the decoupling from the NASDAQ, and we'll be able to know if that's going to happen based off of if Bitcoin can decouple from the NASDAQ, and those interest rates get increased. If we get a triple stack today, and then the inflation continues to run off, then we know that, okay, this is where we really have to start paying attention. Like if Bitcoin can decouple, then we know that we're in the Bitcoin moment, as I like to call it. We're in the moment where Bitcoin really does start to gain attention as the hedge against inflation. But if it does continue to go down with the ship, as I say, if it continues to run in tandem with the stock market, then it's not the moment. And the moment can come later. Now, if the Fed's policies do work, right, then it's a whole nother story. Then it's like, you are kicking the can down the road. More than likely, Bitcoin will stay coupled to the NASDAQ. And if it doesn't, then it's likely they're a product of other market forces, not of this isolated this isolated event.
The last thing before we transition to super chats, and then after super chats, we're actually going to tell you based off of this information, we're going to make our predictions. We're not giving a price. We're not going to say 100,000 by October. We're not going to say 300,000 in 3 years. We're going to say price direction and what price action is going to look like. That's the prediction we're going to make. But I wanted to look at real quickly a chat. I want to give credit to this guy. He's right looking at the chart that there are things that look bearish, but I want to explain why I don't necessarily agree. And I don't see his name. I can't remember his name, but I want to show the monthly chart. And he's saying, Tim, look at the RSI, look at the MACD. It's extremely bearish right now. I want to start off by saying, let's look at the monthly chart real quick. Let's look at the MACD right here. What he's talking about is, of course, these massive red histograms on the MACD. The blue is still coming down. All I'm going to say here, the reason I don't like this indicator necessarily, if you look at this, I'll go ahead and actually, let me go full screen. There's not a whole heck of a lot of data. This is actually the lowest the MACD's ever been on the monthly. Back here, though, we did have some dips. It came back over. If I were to bring this back down, this wasn't necessarily significant. Like this actually, at our red March, we started coming back up. This wasn't as bad as what people really thought it was. The other thing is, again, zooming in here, look at how red histograms can change very quickly. The monthly chart MACD, in my opinion, again, this is simply my opinion. Other analysts can disagree. I don't see this as an extremely reliable indicator for judging Bitcoin. I don't know if Bitcoin's old enough with enough data for that to be reliable. Same thing I said about on Market Cypher when everyone was talking about that red diamond. Was it a double black, or I don't remember what the name of it exactly was. But again, it was the first time we'd ever seen it. You can't go on a lot when you've never seen something before. You actually watch it play out, and then the next time you wait to confirm, does it do the exact same thing twice? And then the third time you're starting to see a trend and you're starting to see stuff develop. We don't necessarily have enough data on that MACD on the monthly chart to do something with it. The other thing is the RSI, technically speaking, I don't know why, yes, it's coming back down, but it's actually looks like it's bouncing off of 50. And there's some other things about the RSI that, again, I wouldn't use this and say, oh, this is bullish, we're going to go up. But if we're going to say there's bearish looking things out here, let's also look at the bullish things. Bouncing off the 50, we actually still have bullish divergence. What does that mean? These candles are lower, so our price action have gone up, but in that same time frame, the RSI is going down. The other thing is, let's look at this real quick, and if I extrapolate this out and don't just stop it right there, look at the formation on the RSI. Just because this isn't price action, you still look at wedges on RSI. We are looking at the very tail end of a falling wedge on the monthly chart RSI. That traditionally breaks bullish. So in the same way that I wouldn't take into consideration the bearish look on the MACD for the monthly chart, there's bullish, or the bearish on MACD, there's bullish information on the RSI that I'm also not going to use. I think that we need to see more data come out. I think Bitcoin needs to get a little bit older before we fully trust those two pieces. But I wanted to give credit. If you're going to use that and you want to look at that MACD and say, oh, that's extremely bearish, we got further down to go, be my guest. Just also look at the history. There's not a lot there to confirm and say that we absolutely know what's going to happen. That's the last thing there. Let's go ahead and read some super chats, and then we'll kind of wrap up with our predictions, and we'll prepare you guys. We're going to be back this afternoon watching the Fed announcement. But I think we just have one, unless something happened. Only one here from Win Peoples. He said, Tim, our thoughts and prayers are with Sarah, Jebb, Taylor, and you. God bless. Thank you so much, Win Peoples. Again, it is as devastating as the last 2 weeks have been. There is comfort in knowing God is still faithful, and you can disagree with that statement, and that's okay, because that's my opinion. But I have evidence, and throughout my whole life, I have evidence. But it's also really encouraging to know that you guys are with us, that you love us, that you care for us. Nothing anyone could say can bring those babies back. Nothing anyone can say is going to stop the pain. But what it is sometimes the best way to help people is to just be there for them and say nothing. And so we thank you absolutely, everybody who's praying over us, thinking about us, who shows love day in and day out. It makes a difference. And so thank you so much. Anything else you guys saw in chat that was interesting?
Yes. I saw an interesting question or comment from Freedom Advocate. Before I read that, go ahead and like this video And also,
It's true. I have not done a good job of putting.
We want to remind the folks that we'll be live today at 1:50 Eastern Time as we do some coverage of this exciting moment in American history, as the Fed perhaps does a triple stack rate. That's what it's forecasted for, actually. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and read this chat. From Freedom Advocate, crypto is the new NASDAQ. We just need to recruit these companies to make coins and transfer the stock price into a coin price. So what do you guys think about that? I have some thoughts on it.
Say it one more time so we just...
Like tokenized stocks is what you're saying?
I hit a button that made it go, wait, here it is. Crypto is the new NASDAQ. Crypto is the new NASDAQ. We just need to recruit these companies to make coins and transfer the stock price into a coin price.
So like tokenized stocks, basically.
Essentially, yeah. So my initial thoughts are, well, the issue with that is that CEOs are, their companies are regulated as securities because they're able, and this is something that Saylor talks about quite a bit, because what CEOs are able to do is they're able to affect the supply of their stock. So Apple does this all the time. They're pretty notorious for buying back a bunch of their own stocks or issuing a bunch of stocks, and that dilutes the shares. So then the movements in price are impact your portfolio less or more in correlation to how much supply is available for Apple stock at that time. So that would be something that is restricted if they were to, if Apple was to convert to a blockchain project, I guess is what you're kind of proposing, and then instead of having stock, you would buy the Apple coin or something equivalent. You know, that would be a sexy move for the crypto space. It kind of would fulfill a lot of people's dreams, but would that actually be more beneficial for the operations, for the business that is Apple? Maybe, maybe not, but one of the tools that would be taken away from the CEO, the guy in charge, the gal in charge, is that they cannot control the supply of stock. And we have all here concluded Bitcoin is a supreme currency because its supply cannot be controlled, it cannot be changed, but maybe the supply should be changed for stocks, and because they have a different priority, a different goal in mind for a business than for a currency. But I mean, all layer 2s are essentially providing a service to layer 1s, like on Ethereum. Yeah, and there are in a sense of business. And so, but they have a somewhat limited supply. So it's interesting.
I do think that crypto and the blockchain technology and the use case of it is the future. It is, I mean, the amount of people are going to use this, the industries that are going to use blockchain technology and the different things. That's the other thing. We always compare coins to each other as if they're the exact same product. We would never compare a car company and a phone company. They do different things. We could compare what their end-all market cap is, what their profit lines are, but to say, these two companies are in competition, they're not in competition. They're doing a completely different service. And there's gonna be certain times where people need more cars, and there's gonna be other times where people need more phones. It's gonna go back and forth. Same thing with crypto. These cryptos do different things. There's certain ones that compete, but there's so many different use cases for them. And the problem right now is the lack of regulation. And I know a lot of people do not like that word. Again, it's not a fun one. There's going to be downsides to it, but the upside is regulational clarity will bring more institutional adoption and will bring things like stock options and the ability to use it the same way you can trade and invest on the NASDAQ. So I absolutely agree. I do think it is the future. What we're waiting for is for actual regulational clarity. And again, Saylor says this. I don't even think it's a bad thing. I don't even know if he means it to be a bad thing. His personal belief is that Bitcoin is not a security, but almost every other altcoin is. Again, with everything happening with XRP, people have been kind of taught almost that security is this evil word. It's okay to be a security. Just make sure you're following the guidelines for security. Cryptos can do that. And so I think there's no problem, even if we did end up deeming every single cryptocurrency as a security and just it was regulated correctly and it follows the rules, it could easily become the new NASDAQ. Again, my opinion, but I just do you disagree with that, or do you have your own thought?
Say that again. I was chatting something.
Yeah, good. We'll go and move on. We're gonna go ahead.
I do have a thought. I have something I do want to say.
Then say what go.
I have something else I was waiting to say.
Go for it. What do you want to say?
Hey, partner, you should maybe, I don't know, take 5 seconds to hit the like button. Yeah.
I think something's wrong if they have to take 5 seconds to hit the like button.
Here's the problem, guys. I see a lot of people watching, not a lot of people hitting the like button. That hurts my feelings. Let's go ahead and pump those numbers up for me. Back to you, Tim.
Boom. What are we currently at? Because I can't see the...
Only 500.
Wow. We had 1,400 people at one point.
It's like they don't like us.
Man.
I've got something crazy. I don't know if people saw this. I'm trying to find it. The SEC commissioner had a tweet that was pretty interesting yesterday. But I'll bring it up if I can find it.
It might be a thing to talk about in a different video here.
Wait a second.
Oh, what happened?
I just got breaking news. Jerome Powell says we'll do the right thing if you guys hit the like button. See, I literally just saw it. It just popped up. Breaking news. Now, the news media, they're gonna try to take that off. So you might not see it, but trust me, I just saw it. Breaking news. He wants you to hit the like button, and he might do what you guys want. So
nice. Well, let's wrap up show because there's gonna be a super chat here in just a second. But let's wrap up the show, giving our predictions. So I want to start with you, Smay.
Yes.
I want you to, first of all, predict what you think the announcement's going to decide. And then second of all, what do you think the price action, both short-term and long-term, looks like for Bitcoin?
Okay. You ready? 75.
Okay.
I think it's a triple stack. And I will say this. I think it's going to be very bearish. I'll be honest with you. I think that it's going to come out. I think people are going to be a little bit shooketh by the news, and the price is going to dump. That is my opinion.
Now, that's the short term. What's your long-term prediction?
Long-term prediction, that is, if it continues to dump, that I'm concerned that we'll probably be pretty down bad for probably the next 6 months. I just think this is gonna just show that people don't see Bitcoin as as what us enthusiasts see it as this hedge against inflation. I think people are gonna get worried. And
clarification here: when you say down bad, we're dropping down to 20s. Down bad, we're staying in the 30.
No,
to 50,000
I think
region?
okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. So I think we can go pretty low. I definitely think we're gonna hit. We could hit as low as like 29, 28.
Okay,
but
I think Kelly has that same opinion.
I think we're gonna be trading very sideways. I think it's gonna be more boring than it is detrimental, right? So I could see us going as low as 29, 28, but I definitely see us coming back up, and then we're just gonna play in that range of 35, 29, and then maybe up to 40, and then I think that's good. What the next 6 months are gonna look like. So.
T-Shroom, how about you? What is your prediction about the basis points? What's your prediction about both short-term, long-term price action?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have to go with the CME futures traders. If they're at 99% certainty, right, that it's going to go. And by the way, here, if you go to my screen, I have it pulled up. It's a range, so it's 75 to 1%. And also, I've been looking at this currency trading website that I like to watch. They have a cool economic calendar. So their forecast is 1%. I don't know if that's just because they're fetching data that is from a range and it just fetched the first number, or the whole number, or whatever. But if they're forecasting 1%, that's what, a quadruple stack. So I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be a quadruple stack, but I think it'll at least be 50. But more than likely, I think it's going to be 75. I don't think it'll be 1%. I don't think that's in the cards for today. That would be an undue amount of fear for the market, and it wouldn't accomplish much more than a 75% rate increase. But here's also a sleeper prediction: is I also think that there's a possibility that Jerome, seeing that the CME markets have predicted 75, now he's thinking, oh, I could actually pull it back to 50 basis point move. And things would be a little bit more peachy, but also the market can start to exercise its muscles in preparation for triple stack rate increases in the future. Okay, in terms of price action, I put my price prediction for the end of this week at what, 36.50. I think it will be a triple rate hike is my prediction, and so I do think we're gonna unfortunately come down and probably see the low 30s. So like 33 would probably be pretty reasonable. Yeah. And I think that just because the rest of the crypto community they haven't really paid attention to things like the CME futures. Like, when was the last time we talked about it outside of this context? We don't sit there and track the CME futures, right? And I don't think that most other people do either. They also don't go on currency exchange websites and check out the forecast, right? They really just tune in after the fact. They don't even know. A lot of people don't even know that the FOMC or the Fed are releasing numbers today. So we're kind of privileged in that we're in this every single day. Okay, so why is that important? Because I think it's 75 is not priced in. I think 50 is priced in because of the whales that are paying attention and the retail that is paying attention. But I think that a lot of folks are not paying attention, a lot of retail.
Yeah.
And when they see 75 and then they go home and they watch Fox Business or they watch CNBC, and all of a sudden the Fed's doing this thing called a triple rate hike that hasn't been done in X amount of years, I think they're going to be more inclined to capitulate and sell out of crypto, unfortunately, and that's going to bring the price lower. But we'll see. I mean, the counter argument to that would be no, there's really only strong hands right now, and that's why we're not seeing much of a move below that range that we're in. So, and it has been keeping that range pretty tight. So that's my prediction. That's the T-Shroom take.
You know, I'm going to give Kelly texting me. So Kelly's actually different than you guys. He actually thinks we're going to go 50. He thinks, 50, and he thinks by the end of the day, we're going to see at least 39.5. Again, the thought, and I think we're in agreement with him on that. If it is 50, the price is, that pain price has been worked in. It actually would be bullish. Again, not sending us back up to 43, 44, but potentially getting us closer to that $40,000 level. I think that's realistic, but I'm in the same boat as you guys about the 75. I do think 75 is going to happen, and I think there's a lot of reasons why. And I think Powell has been trying to baby this for a while, but inflation is bad, and we know it, and they know that we know it. I think 75 is coming. I do see a price coming down. Again, I projected as low as 32. I know Kelly said as low as 28, somewhere in that region. But again, what that also brings to us is an amazing spring, an amazing buy opportunity. And I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see $100,000 in 2022, but I do think there's a good likely chance that with that low spring, with value coming into the market, with institutional adoption coming in the market, and with the regulational clarity, despite interest rates happening, again, interest rates might actually be part of why we get to go higher. I do think we're going to be bullish. I do think we're going to see if I'm right or wrong. I do think we will see an all-time high before the end of 2022. Not sure about 100,000.
I definitely disagree, but
you're more than welcome to disagree because it's your opinion versus mine.
No,
but I want to wrap. Hold on, we gotta go. I'm gonna wrap us up. Super chats here. Brandon Haley said, "Do you guys stake your ADA on Coinbase still? I noticed the lowered their APY to 2.6. Love you guys. Thank you for everything. I don't. Do you do that, T-Shroom?
I
stake on Coinbase?
Don't they just automatically do it?
I don't stake on Coinbase.
No, but there is an APY on there automatically, but that's not staking. Okay. Kelly said, tap that like button. Incredibly easy way to help support the channel, and we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys. TZ also, who, he's in chat. He works for us. He's our moderator. He said, thank you guys for joining us today on the live stream. Help out and tap those likes. So that's all we have for today's show. Not going to be a big, crazy, juicy ending. What you should know, though, is today, here's what we need to clarify. Kelly did post this, I think, in chat, and I think he texted me as well. The announcement, I still think, is at 2:30. Even though I think the meeting happens around 2, I don't think that we actually are going to see Powell until 2:30. So more than likely, we'll actually end up going live at 2:20. We will keep you posted. I'll make sure Ted, TZ, that is, he will make sure to update the message boards. He'll update our social medias. We'll let you guys know for sure. But at this point, I'm thinking 2:20 is when we'll go live. We'll watch Powell's announcement, and then we'll have a short discussion afterwards. And make sure you join us. You don't want to miss it. Other than that, though, if you don't see us there, you will see us back tomorrow. We love you guys. #FinSov. Peace.